Beautiful! Welcome back to Andertons TV, everybody. I am joined today with one of the loveliest people that I've ever met, Angel Vivaldi.
So thrilled to be here. So thrilled to be here.
I mean, our relationship is normally a distant one with Instagram messages and the odd like on a post. But what are you doing in the UK?
Living the dream, man. Here visiting the wonderful Andertons, of course, and just enjoying my time in London for the first time without the obligation of having to tour, which is...
So it's just a proper holiday, just like good for you, good for you. Well, look, we're going to do a sort of a Captain Meets interview, so we'll talk about growing up and early guitar influences, and then we'll talk about your career and your opinions on music and teaching and all the other things you're involved with. Yeah, politics. We'll go full, and then we'll edit all those bits out and we'll just stick to what pedals you like. So and then gear, of course, because we're a gear channel. So raised in America.
Yes.
A real melting pot of musical influences.
Indeed.
But tell us about growing up, family, because I read somewhere that your parents didn't really like the idea of you becoming a musician, perhaps had other ideas for you. But what, can you remember what the first, when you were first drawn to learn to play the guitar?
Oh, listen, if we're going that far back, do we have any sedatives? I think you might need a sedative. I know I need one. Growing up in New Jersey to a Puerto Rican household, there was a... I grew up in 85, right? I was born in 85. So I really feel that that's really benefited me in a lot of ways because it helped me to adapt to a lot of the inevitable changes and the constant stream of changes that we're having in the industry. But so I grew up with dance music. So it was Spanish, salsa, merengue, bachata was always in the household. And then I grew up with the dance music of my parents' adolescence, which was funk, disco, Motown, smooth jazz. It's like it's kind of nuts, but and then with dance music also like freestyle, 80s house and stuff. So that was very, very important part of just growing up in that area. And so I think from an early age, the first experiences I had were like growing up Michael Jackson videos, and the whole early 90s sort of pop music. And as I got older, it was a very gradual process to more extreme music. So it kind of went from like, the genres that I mentioned beforehand to once I got into 7th and 8th grade, I started to listen to like Hanson, Alanis Morissette, Jewel was the first, Pieces of You was the first ever record I had, beautiful, brilliant songwriting. And then it got progressively heavy. Then it went to like Bush, Nirvana, Metallica. So I got every like musical speed bump.
You must have been playing catch up though, right? Because I'm just trying to think. So Nirvana, you're only like 5 or 6 years old when Nirvana. So because that although again different generation, but I always felt I was kind of discovering something 5 years after everyone else had discovered.
Yeah.
But I mean I know you cite Kurt Cobain and Nirvana as a big influence of yours, or probably the first big influence. Which I would imagine would surprise people because it doesn't feel like your guitar playing doesn't sound particularly influenced by that.
Right.
But what was that like how old were you when you first kind of heard some Nirvana, and what did that do?
Oh man, it stopped me dead in my tracks. I remember the day, I remember what the room smelled like, I remember the situation that I was in. I was about 13 at that point. I think so I guess answering your question previously, growing up in that household, like listening to what we call white people music, which was not a thing. If you're Puerto Rican, you don't listen to anything with a guitar. It just wasn't, and I had a really hard time.
Okay.
Very, very difficult time. But I think with adolescent angst and stuff like that, it was just more a matter of the more they pushed against it, the more I was like, I'm going to keep going, And then I found this sort of expression of that angst through Kurt Cobain, and who better, And I was like about 12 or 13, I think at that point when I saw Nirvana, I was like, that's what I'm going to do with my life, 100%. I literally, that was it. And I was, because it also, like, if you think about that from a composition standpoint, that's funk. like the chicka chickas in between. Yeah. And I grew up with funk, so I was like, and then I heard the distortion come in, because at first it's clean. You have no idea what you're in for if you're really ignorant to it. Yeah. And I think a lot of people sort of miss that aspect of the intro. And then when I heard da-na-na-na, I was just like, I'm getting goosebumps right now, because I remember what that moment was like for me. And then it was like really sort of internalizing the blueprints of how to write music. Mm-hmm. And then every elevation, from there, in terms of like, getting heavier, more complex. So like Metallica, Bush, Savage Garden, and then getting into like Megadeth, which I feel is sort of drawing the line. Like Metallica's like, but then when you get to Megadeth and you get to Rust in Peace, like, which is a very complex, rhythm, is more progressive compared to Metallica stuff. Then you go to Testament, then you're going into like all these other extreme genres. So it was a very gradual process, and I think that for me as a songwriter, it benefited me because I learned every blueprint of all these different genres that I've sort of subconsciously infused into my stuff.
And so were you, is it 15 when you got your first guitar?
I was 13 or 14.
13 or 14. Yeah. So I guess a fairly, you weren't like a child prodigy at 5 years old or anything like that. So,
definitely
so a fairly typical age to get started, which is cool. Can you remember what your first guitar was?
My first guitar was a red Silvertone, which is
cool.
by Samick, like the Samick Squires. And I named it Skylar. And that was my guitar. And then after that, a buddy of mine sold me an Iceman, an Ibanez Iceman, for like $300. Cool. Old school Iceman. That was it was Blurple.
Yeah.
It's like that blue purple. It's like really cool.
And were you in bands quickly or?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so tell us, because I guess even now, it was a long time ago for me, but it's just it's a magical that. You get your guitar 13, 14 years old, and then, I don't know, what probably seems like a lifetime, but looking back was only 2 or 3 years. And all of a sudden it's like, you're in bands with all your buddies and you're doing your first gigs and stuff. But yeah, take us back then. So this is in New Jersey?
This is in New Jersey, yeah.
Great scene then, presumably, at that point.
Well, the town that I was in was predominantly Hispanic and, African American. So again, there were like 3 white people, to like who I felt I can relate to on a musical level. Everyone else was listening to rap and R&B and hip hop and stuff like that. So when I was in high school, I started this band with a couple buddies of mine, and this was the early 2000s. So in that era, it was like we're all into like Deftones and Korn and Static X and like a lot of the nu metal stuff. But where the guitar solos kind of came, it was like Kirk Hammett. Was the guy who was like, you can play solos. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. So he's the kind of the catalyst for me learning how to play lead guitar. My only thing that I wanted ever was to be the lead guitarist and the primary songwriter in a band. That's all I wanted. I didn't want to be a frontman. I had no interest in doing any of that. But the guitar instrumental thing, I've been doing it 20 years now. 2003, so the end of high school is when I started doing instrumental music. And at that time, I didn't know it existed because the internet wasn't as robust as it is now. So the only instrumental music I remember listening to was like the Weather Channel. It's like ding, 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 But so I would make these drills to practice my lead chops. So I stole a Dr. Rhythm drum machine from the band room because no one used it. So I was like, I'm gonna put this to use. I'm gonna put some miles on it. So and now the standard power metal on loop, and it's just like just like backing tracks, and then just me practicing the guitar grimoire scales and stuff. So and then I just did my little thing. Then I got bored of that, and then I was like, oh, this sounds kind of cool. What if I changed it like this? And then it just kept going and going and going and going and going.
Is everything self-taught, or did you have a formal kind of music education?
Oh, everything's self-taught, yeah.
All self-taught?
Yeah, because even YouTube wasn't what it is now, so like it was, it was version 13 of the Smaller Teen Spirit.
That's impressive skills, but are you, you're a technically very gifted guitar player, but are you playing mainly by ear, or have you got a sort of an understanding of the sort of theory behind what you're going to play?
I would say 65-35.
Which way?
Being more like it's just self-taught, like not knowing. I know enough theory to sort of be able to teach it competently and to talk to another guitar player, like this mode, whatnot. But I never got any formal training, so I don't know the proper scale of things. But I was just a very intuitive player,
And you were from 2003 when you finished school and everything like that. Are you has that only guitar only ever been your career, or were you sort of balancing day jobs for a while? Or?
Oh, of course, yeah.
So,
I mean, because my ideas, like I had this vision of what I wanted to do, and beyond music, I have so many other artistic interests, and thankfully, I kind of look at my music career as like a tree, and like the foundation of what I do is the trunk of the tree, but I've branched out in so many other things, whether it be like, I love fashion, I love art, I love videography, I love storyboarding treatments and telling stories visually, especially as an instrumentalist, because I think that in some respect your hands are tied, and I think the beautiful thing about instrumental music is that it doesn't necessarily force you, like this song's about this, Sea of Heartbreak could be about losing your grandmother, or about losing your dog, or about, having a great first date. It could be whatever you want it to be. Whereas, I think that when I know a lot of my friends who have gone to MIT, or formal training, they're kind of like, oh, I wish I never went because like I think in rules, and like I think it's just more a matter of whatever floats your boat in that respect,
I think from the guys that have had really good formal educations in music, I like it when they go. It's like being a great chef. You need. You need to understand what ingredients can go together, and you might experiment with different ingredients to go together, but you have a fundamental understanding of what ingredients go together to make something nice. But what you're not doing is every day following the recipe out of a cookbook, so it's like you understand, but you're not tied in.
You learn the rules to know how to break them, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I certainly know as someone that has no understanding of theory, or the most basic understanding of theory, I do find you hit many more brick walls of just sort of going, well, I don't really know where I go from here or how I approach that, because I've got to try and guess it, and if I'm just guessing wrong or whatever, then I don't feel.
That's the intuitive part of it, because listen, at the end of the day, your ear will never lie to you. Your ear will let you know what you feel sounds good, but I think the precursor to that is exposing yourself to different types of music, because different types of music have different blueprints in them, right? So I think if you have a well-versed palette of blueprints, like you'll find beauty in a lot of different things, And to your point too, I think that with regards to like every guitarist in the world, what are we doing? Constantly repeating ourselves, right? Every single one of you, right? That's everyone. That's Guthrie, that's Tosin, that's me, that's Vi. We're all repeating ourselves to some degree. We all have our bag of tricks, okay? Guthrie's is seemingly limitless, but minor detail.
Like, who was it had the bag? Is it Mary Poppins, where the bag never? It's like
it's just
he has Mary
Narnia.
Poppins' bag of tricks, doesn't he?
Yeah, but I think it's more a matter of being very honest with what the things you repeat. So a good example is the term phrasing. We use that term all the time. Oh, I love his phrasing. Oh, her phrasing's amazing. I love how she phrased that. But a lot of us just don't sit back to find out what that term means. It's like learning a bad word in another language. You just know when to use it. You don't really understand the definition of it, right? So I've been able to sort of break phrasing into 3 tiers, right? So the first thing is like the note choice, right? So if I have like 3 notes, I'm going to choose, right? So note choice also has to do with the order of the notes. All sorts of different combinations of the order, right? Second thing is the rhythm. Right? What's the rhythmic language that they're using to express that, right? So it's elongating and shortening certain notes. Or. And it has a different pacing, right? So that's tier number 2. And between tier 1 and 2, you have limitless ability. Like the combinations are limitless. And then the third thing is where the magic happens. And the third thing is really a matter of like the finesse of the player. How are they wielding that sword into battle, right? What does their vibrato sound like? What techniques are they using to say the sentence? Because it's a phrase, right? You're communicating something, right? So I would phrase that maybe something like, or, right? And then we did a tour. It was myself, Andy James, and Scale the Summit. A couple years back. It was called the Guitar Collective. It's like my little G3.
I imagine you had fun with Andy.
Oh my God. Are we going to have a part 2 of this? Because that would be brilliant. I just love him, man. He's just so
We don't see he's moved to LA now. We never see him. It's like
he's living the American dream now.
Living the dream. Yeah. Come back to England and make inappropriate video content with us, please. Andy.
He's good at that, man. But I when we were talking about phrasing, we use this example. Like, Andy, take these 3 notes. What would you do? And then Chris, do these 3 notes, and he'll do like some obscure jazz thing, and we're all using the same notes, it's just a different language, right? So when I realized this, I was kind of like, all right, well, how am I constantly repeating myself? You know, because there's a fine line. I think a lot of guitar players, we're just awful to ourselves in terms of beating ourselves up for, you know, playing the same notes and over again. But I think you have to understand that you have to solve into that experience just a little bit, because you don't understand that you're actually building a signature sound for yourself, you know? So I think it's a matter of how you use it, right? So when I laid these 3 things out, and I do this with my lessons as well, I realized in 2008, my first record, I was doing this like a lot. Like this. And I loved that. I was like, oh, it sounds nice and futuristic. It sounds kind of melodic, you know? But then I was like, oh, I'm doing that a lot, man. I gotta chill with that. So tier 1, let's change the note choice, right? So then I went from that, I went to something maybe... I was like, okay, then. It's like, all right, now we're changing it. It has the same, you know, rhythmic aspect. The notes are changing, and it changes it. So then I started changing it more. I was like, okay. Then I started doing that a lot, right? So then I think about, all right, what are some of the things that I can do? Maybe if I added more notes and I changed the rhythm of it and changed the technique, maybe if I went something like that, now it's a completely different animal, but it's still signature to me. I think it's just more a matter of like reinventing your playing over and over again, and not to just like, there's seeds of possibility with the notes that you're constantly repeating over and over again, you know, just develop them a little bit more.
I think that's the greatest compliment you can pay a guitar player, is to say that you have an identifiable sound.
Absolutely.
Like, that's such and such on a record or whatever. And there's actually, I don't know, there's many, when you actually break it down, it's a relatively short list, isn't it? Of like where you can just hear a piece of music and go, you know, if you guessed on someone else's, when you get your little 8 bars of guitar solo, there you go, that's, you know, and it'll be Slash, Eric Clapton, you know, the list is not long, in my opinion. But anyway, I want to talk about the instrumental thing. It's obviously been a decision of yours to go down that sort of guitar instrumental path, as opposed to... have you tried singing, or, you know, just not your bag?
I can hold a tune, you know, but I mean, it's
just don't want to be that guy? Or?
Well, to be quite honest, I think it treads past the line of vulnerability that I'm not interested in going past, you know? And I'm very honest with myself. And
it's pretty deep.
I don't have any qualms about that. I think a lot of people feel insecure about feeling insecure, and I think that sort of forces people to do things like, let's say, oh, I see Angel, he does all of his videos, he does everything himself, so they put that on themselves to do. No. I see, you know, Misha used to mix and master all of his songs, like, so they have to take that on. Like, no, you know, you have to pick and choose what you're passionate about, because ultimately you're going to have fun doing it. And when you're having fun doing something, you're going to get better at it, because you want to get better at it, you know? Like, I have no interest in, you know, singing or writing lyrics or anything like that. Like, it's just, you know, I'd rather sing through the notes that I play and phrase them in a way that says something, you know, that I feel resonates with what I want to say, ultimately.
And is that sort of... So you're not chasing anything in the sense of what's the right word? You're not chasing a sort of a mainstream... acceptance, if you like. You just, because guitar instrumental music is always going to be a relative niche. You know, it's never going to be everyone's cup of tea. Well,
especially 20 years ago when I started, no one was doing it. I was the only guy on, because I got my start, like, really, it was like me on the 7string.org forum. So like me, Ola, Misha, we all got our start the same exact way at the same exact time, during the MySpace days. Excuse me. And
MySpace.
In the MySpace days, man, you know, and soundclick.com, you know, mp3.com and Pure Volume and all those old school, like, you know, that's how I discovered a lot of bands. But that's how I got my start, essentially. And no one was doing guitar instruments. There's this whole generation of guitar instrumentalists that no one really knows. And this was in the early 2000s. So you had like myself, Rusty Cooley came up around the same time. This is guitarist Rob Balducci, and we also do this thing called Gemfest. It was this, you know, if you're familiar.
The Steve Vai the Steve Vai kind of for his charity, I think it is.
The Make a Noise Foundation, and I did like 3 or 4 of those, and you know, and that was and back in the day, it was funny. What we used to do is we all had websites. and we would do link exchanges. So I hit up Rusty, like, hey, Rusty, what's going on, man? Like, good to catch up. You know, you want to do a link exchange? So we'd have a link exchange, like my link would be on his site and, you know, vice versa. That's how we did it, man. Before MySpace's top 8, you know. But I think that there's this, but again, in the early 2000s, just, it was really Korn and a lot of, like, you know, no guitar solos. And, you know, it's funny that you say that. So Steve Vai, funny enough, gave me some amazing advice when I was 19 years old. I got to meet him, and we did like a you know, like a Q&A thing. And he passed his guitar around, and I was the last one in the circle, and he was right here. And I was like 18, 19, and he's answering everyone's question, but as he's answering everyone's question, he's handing around Evo. So I get I'm like this, right? I'm like I'm sweating. I'm like Whitney Houston sweating. I did not look nice at all. And I get the guitar, and I'm like, what the fuck do I play on this thing, right? So I just start like, everyone's dark. It's just the spotlight's on me. And I'm just like, oh my God. So I'm like, you know, and just playing. And he was in the middle of answering someone's question, and he stopped answering the question. He turns around like this. He looks at me, and I just felt heat, right? Like, I just like, oh my God. And I felt like I was being so rude. I was like, I'm so sorry. And he goes, Jesus Christ, man, how long have you been playing? At that time, you know, maybe like, you know, 5-6 years or something like that. I was like, yeah, I've been playing for like, you know, 5 or 6 years. And then he goes in this whole thing about, at the time he said, there's 2 different types of guitarists. You know, there's guitarists like me that have to sit down like 8 hours a day and like practice, you know. Then there's brats like you, you know, like pick it up really quick. And it was just wonderful. But I mean, like, that's like, that memory is steeped in my mind. So I asked him a question. I was like, listen, what advice would you have for a 19-year-old guitar instrumentalist? Mind you, this was 20 years ago. He gave, whatever. He said what he said. The last thing he said was, if people don't like instrumental music, make them like it. And that stuck with me. That stuck with me, man.
I suppose that lays down the gauntlet a little bit, doesn't it?
For sure.
There's no, just keep trying until...
Yeah.
I mean, I know you say that there weren't really guitar instrumentalists prior to you, but so where do you put that sort of genres of the sort of Steve Vai and Satriani and Eric Johnson and stuff, who obviously are, you know, there's no, you know, are making instrumental
that
music.
Was it, yeah.
So you're sort of saying it's just it wasn't as widespread as perhaps it is now. And
yeah.
certainly there was no YouTube scene of people sort of doing it, was there?
100%. That's really what I mean. Obviously they were killing it from like, you know, for decades at that point.
So who of those when you got, you know, in that sort of, after you've been playing for a little while and you've begun to relate to guitar instrumental sort of music, who were the main sort of standout guys that you and what was it that you were sort of drawing from them, I guess? Yeah,
well, the funny thing is obviously the G3 1996, come on.
It's a great video.
Eric Johnson. I know, we know every note of every little banter of you know, of course Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Eric Johnson. Out of the 3, Eric Johnson was the one. I mean, I heard Cliffs of Dover now, and at that point I did guitar instrumental for a little under a year. I had never heard of it before, and when I finally heard it, it was Cliffs of Dover was the first song, and I was just like, there's a world for me, you know? And then, you know, I discovered G3 and it was just amazing. So like, the thing with Eric Johnson that I took was just more sensible songwriting and a sort of melodicism that just, of course, Satriani and Vai had. It's just, they wielded that sword differently. It's like, sort of like the difference between battle axes, dual wielding swords, and like the samurai sword, right? They're all doing damage, it's just in a different way, right? But Eric Johnson, man, like, he just seeed more, I don't know, elegant.
Use the sword analogy. What kind of sword was Eric? Is he a rapier? Is it that kind of like, is it just like, you don't really see, it's like a very fine blade, but it sort of, you know, cuts like a razor as opposed
it was more
to like a hammer.
Like fencing. There's an art and dance to it, you know? Like there's this, it's elegant, it's grace. Like the way that he does it, it's just like, I don't know, man. It's just sort of like, I can't really put into words like the way that this, because the songwriting structure is so important, man. And I think that, like, so I will say that Satriani wrote the blueprint of guitar instrumental music, right? In terms of the Western world, you know, it's like, it's pop music. Intro, verse, chorus, pre-chorus, you know, the whole nine. And Vi was more progressive with it. He comes from the Zappa school,
Yeah.
you know, so he knows the rules in order how to break them, like we talked earlier. Where Eric sort of like is in the middle of those two, you know, because he has a jazz and fusion sensibility. And I think that, you know, starting with him and then going to the other two is like, oh, I'm gonna pick a little of him, pick a little of him, pick a little of him. Malmsteen. Who's that? Oh my God. I'm going to take a little bit of him. And at this time, I was really into like a lot of Gothenburg, you know, rock and metal, stuff like that.
Okay.
Like Soul Work and Flames. Take a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of, Nirvana. And it just keeps going.
But then you're also, interestingly, I think, especially more latterly, you're infusing more of your sort of Puerto Rican kind of roots.
Yeah.
So it is different. You know, you're sort of seeing a guy that stands up that's playing guitar instrumental music, still with, you know, gain, and he's not gone jazzy or anything like that. But it is an unusual, as you say, sort of a bit of everything plus something new. And I guess that's the challenge, right? Is it to just try not to copy everybody else?
Right. Well, I think we stand on the shoulders of our giants, right? You know, I think we all imitate to some degree. I think the difference, you know, so I'll be 38 next month. So I think the difference with my generation of guitar playing as opposed to the newer one, because I think a lot of people now are quite, you know, the older audiences are quite like these young kids that get it, right? Every generation says that.
Yes,
right?
they do.
And I think the reason why they say that now is because this person sounds like this person, sounds like this person, sounds like this person. Well, you have to understand that for a young kid to have an established career online, you're just seeing the journey of them starting. You don't know what they're going to sound like when they're 40, 50, 60 years old. Give them time. We did that work behind the closed doors of our bedroom. When we finally went out into the world, that's when we were ready. You know, we sounded like ourselves.
Yeah.
They didn't see the journey, where now, like, you're seeing every aspect, every tier of their journey. I think that there's something to be said about that, because I think that, you know, it's a matter of playing the game. I think I think the negatives of that, to some degree, are that, you know, younger generations are playing to platforms, not playing what they want to play. So what's happening is it's sort of catering to the short-term attention span, right? So what's happening is they'll have, you know, beautiful 30-second etudes that no one's going back to listen to. I'm not going back to listen to a third, you know, like scroll through your feed to listen to that again. You know, so I think that in terms of a songwriting aspect, to complete a full 2 to 3 minute song is quite challenging for them, because they don't have practice in doing it. Why? Because the platform doesn't cater to it, you know?
I think also as well, we see it, you know, when we have younger guests through here, they're striving for perfection in a way that I think, you know, people from previous generations never had to. There was never a sense that, you know, I mean, God, when I was gigging, you could go out and stand up on stage and make as many mistakes as you liked, and as long as roughly somebody knew what the song was like, you'd still get a round of applause at the end. It seems now, if you go onto YouTube and you want to put yourself out there as a young guitar virtuoso, you either do 30 seconds or a minute of perfection that's you've probably had to record 500 times to get the one take that's perfect.
Right.
Because if you put anything else out there, you get trolled to the point where you don't want to do it anymore.
Well, right,
and you just go, oh, come on, I think it's both sides. I think it's like, show a bit more of like real, like what do you really like as a guitar player?
Right.
And then audience-wise, just be nice.
Right. Yeah.
Just like, you know, these people are still unbelievable guitar players, even if they like make one mistake, you know.
Yeah. Well, the one mistake is the one thing that people keep, you know, because our operant conditioning in our brains is, you know, it's the same thing with like good comments. Anything positive, our brain is Teflon to good experiences and Velcro for bad experiences. And the reason why is because we don't want those bad experiences to happen, so we rehearse them over and over and over again after they happen, so that we can prevent them from happening, which is completely counterintuitive, but that's how our brains are wired, right? So it's the same thing. Like I could have just played the most beautiful solo that can change people's lives, but if I hit one wrong note, that's the note that people remember, right? So there's a certain amount of pressure. But I think the
other way. See, I play one good note amongst a horrendous solo bad note.
So you desensitize them initially.
That's what everyone goes, wow, isn't he getting better?
Good for him, man. Good for you, you know? But I think ultimately, to your point with the striving for perfection, look at the platform that people are striving for perfection on. It's Instagram. And Instagram is the mecca of, you know, pushing perfection in every way. Photoshop, you know. So again, that's another aspect of what I'm saying in terms of like how it sort of makes people they're playing for the platform, not for themselves, you know. And you have to understand that rarely any of these Instagram guitarists are touring. You rarely ever see them tour. You rarely ever see them live stream, you know, because it's vulnerable.
It exposes.
It exposes.
Yeah.
They have the veil of perfection, and and the thing is, not only is, and then you have to understand that the audiences are sort of feeding their, because we all have egos, right? And it's feeding their egos and it's making careers for them. So like, can you blame them? Of course not. Absolutely not, you know? But the second that, you know, I think that if and when the veil falls, let's say, for instance, they get an opportunity that they can't say no to. Hey, come on tour with me, you know? And they're playing in front of people, of course, they're going to do it. And they're going to come in for a rude awakening, and I feel bad, you know?
I was going to say, and the blame is on both sides, isn't it? I think the viewing audience has to take their share of, they've created that, haven't they? By basically going, if you can't be perfect, then I'm going to say something negative.
Right.
But anyway, look.
Yeah.
So we first met maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I think at that time you'd probably just started to become sort of known. I think maybe you had some artist signature deals and things like that, and we'd see you around a bit more. So, and then since then, I've only really followed, you know, what you're doing sort of career-wise since then. And I love this, you do have this, I have seen the change from kind of a more metal-based shreddy player into a slightly, I don't know what even the genre you'd explain it as.
Neither do I.
It needs a new name, doesn't it? But it's sort of, it's still got roots in kind of shredding, but it's got a bit of Latino kind of vibe to it, and it's maybe a bit more poppy. But what I always love as well is you want to present the full visual and audio kind of package. So how you look's always been important. I watch videos of yours with Pete, and I'm going, that looks like he spent like 2 weeks making this video. It's like in YouTube land, you're lucky if you get 2 hours to sort of make a video, let alone 2 weeks. So you're obviously, you know, very conscious of that. But what's the aim? What do you want to be? You know, what are you hoping people? Are you even hoping people think anything? I'm just I guess the worst thing with an audience is indifference, right? You know, so I hope they think something. You know, who? Exactly. But I think ultimately for me, again, there's so many things that I love doing, man. I love dancing. I love the videography, cinematography, fashion, lighting, storytelling. You know, and I think when it comes to, it depends on how deeply you want to zoom into the concept of phrasing, right? We talked about it from a lick perspective. Then you think about the song itself, right? It's like the song is the meal, not unseasoned mashed potatoes and meat, right? You can live off of that. But then with the phrasing, it's like the seasoning. It's like proper seasoning for every single one. All right, that's great. That's the phrasing. That's the song. How are you visually going to express this in a way that makes sense, right? Because listen, part of being an artist is being misunderstood, and I made peace with that many, many years ago. But I'm going to do my absolute best to make sure that people understand what I'm trying to say. So most of my records are all concept records. So and that's the only opportunity an instrumentalist has to explain a concept or an idea, right? And I always one of my favorite artists is 9 Inch Nails, Bjork, Tori Amos, because they just brilliant songwriters, brilliant storytellers, you know. And obviously with Trent Reznor, the visual aspect is always a very important thing. Disturbing or not, you feel something, right? So, and then obviously growing up with Michael Jackson, music videos were like larger than life. You never knew what he was going to do next. Yeah. And, you know, that really stuck to me. And I think that when it comes to how I approach the visuals and the concepts, I just want them to be very authentic, right? So with the newest record, Away with Words Part 2, and Away with Words Part 1, the concept is yin yang, okay? So Part 1 is very rock and metal, progressive metal, you know, with one sort of leaning on country ballad. And then Part 2 is funk, Latin acoustic, classical. It's like all over the place. And the second, it's a challenging record for people to listen to because there's no continuity with the genres at all. Every song is a different world. The mix is different. The instrumentation is different. And when it came to visually storytelling that, I just want to do
like, I guess my aim is just to be the best artist in everything that I'm interested in as I possibly can. So a good example is the video that we were talking about earlier with the song 9. When I got into drag to do the whole no vagina stuff. And if anyone, it's no vagina. It's no vagina.
We were saying, honestly, Pete and I, for literally 10 minutes of watching that going, who's no vagina? And we're just going like, I don't know. And then about 5 minutes and we're going, is that Angel? And we're just like going, it is, it's Angel. And then I'm going, it's not no vagina at all. It's no vagina. And like, literally, I couldn't have felt any older or out of touch with the world.
Oh my God.
But yeah, we were laughing and it's like, wow.
Yeah,
fair
see,
play,
but
man.
that's the reaction that I want. You know, it's a pun upon a pun, right? And it's just putting, like, if I were to think of my career as like a massive machine, I want every washer, every nut to be powder coated to tell the story of everything. I don't want any detail or because they're opportunities. You know, they're opportunities to sort of explain what you want to do. So with Non and obviously No Vagina, like, it's just born out of a Charvel Nova campaign, and I wanted to name her Nova, and I was like, Nova what? No vagina. You know, it's just fun. You know, and a lot of, you know, overall, like, my fans are just wonderful people. Like, you know, I've been at this 20 years. I know them. I go to their Instagram just because I'm curious. I want to see, get a profile of an Angel Vivaldi fan, right? From a business aspect, it's important to know these are intelligent, you know, high frequency operating individuals who understand. You know, like, I did this concept record called Synapse. And it's a record about neurochemistry, right? So it's dopamine, serotonin, adrenaline, adenosine, and what I did was I assigned a color to every song. I painted my studio red, and I wrote adrenaline. I painted my studio purple, and I did GABA. I did red, you know, black for dopamine, and it was it was method writing essentially. And the amount of comments that I got from my fans are saying, "Oh my God, I was just teaching this in my biology class," you know, like they understood the intention, but also I think is the optional responsibility of the artist to go above and beyond to that degree. It's an individual's, you know, desire if they want to do that. Because listen, like, there were 2 days during that process where I legitimately cried, no bullshit, because it was just, because I also filmed everything. I was doing a documentary. So like, it was just got to the point where I had this huge red wall staring at me, which was very anxiety inducing. And I had all this workload of like designing a room over and over and over again, like, no bullshit. It was rough, you know, but it's a matter of like, how intelligently do you want to bleed for your art? You know, and how deep do you want to go to like not be misunderstood? Knowing you're going to be misunderstood anyway, but like, I have to do my part and wash my hands of it, you know? So like, obviously getting into drag nowadays with the whole Bud Light thing, it's just horrible timing, you know? And they missed the point of like, you know, Away with Words Part 1 and Part 2 being yin and yang, and that is yin and yang. It's male, female, even down to the details of her playing style, which is completely different. Like, her playing, No Vagina's playing style is very blues, in your face, masculine, high vibrato, like, you know, just like that, you know, like that ugly, like Dorta Delta blues. That's not Angel Vivaldi's style at all, you know?
No, I like Nova. Bring her back.
Yeah. Oh man, the heels, man.
She's my favorite.
Oh man, that was nasty. But to go to the point, like, you talk about like the bag of tricks, right?
Yeah.
That's natural for us, you know, and to sort of do those examples that I gave earlier, that's natural. Like, you have to push yourself a little bit. But I'm like, man, at some point I even thought about hiring someone to write her solos, because I was having the hardest time. I really wanted her to sound completely different. And I remember I used a completely different patch. It was like a high watt sort of like blues thing, whatever, blues driver. And I was just like, I was using the wrong sword. I had to get
a Les Paul.
I should. Oh, now you're just pushing. Now you're pushing it. How am I going to play with that with nails, a Les Paul? Get out of here. Can you imagine?
I do want to. We're going to go to gear in a minute. Yeah. I got one kind of. You talked about on that last record, every song being from a different genre.
Yeah.
Did anything happen during that album for you to go, you know what? I might do a country album, or I might do it. Was there anything where you just went, you just sort of discovered a genre that you maybe hadn't particularly dug before, or what? I'm just interested. Or do you think, you know, do you think your future is more about developing, staying within on the road that you're on at the moment, of the kind of the sort of, I suppose, the sort of the virtuoso guitar kind of vibey sort of thing?
Well, to be completely honest, I just never really... I'm not entirely sure, man. I think it's just more a matter of where I feel like I am based on the concept of the album. The concept of the album is always going to tell me what it wants. The song is always going to tell me the video that it wants.
Right.
When I heard 9, that's exactly what needs to happen. That story needs to happen right here in this section, and I think it's sort of listening to the bigger message of what it is that you're doing as opposed to your, what's safe. Because, listen, I knew that doing all these genre things was going to be a huge risk because I've been doing progressive stuff. And I have my ballads here and there, but this was a completely different level to it. So I just always just want to do what I want to do because I feel like that's what's going to end up being the best, And I think it's also a matter of writing from different emotions because as you get older, man, you just being angry is exhausting, And it's not, that's for a lack of a better term because it's not that metal is always angry because I always find a lot of beauty in, some Children of Bodom songs or whatever. But that's the only thing I can say right now, because there's an aggressive dynamic to it, double bass, and that's cool. But there's so many emotions to explore, I think if you work hard, life gets better if you're lucky, and I count my blessings every day, man. Life's been very good to me, and I'm grateful to be here.
I think I was interested when we were having a bit of lunch. I was kind of interested in what pays the bills.
Yeah.
And I think we'll come back to that after we've done a dive of the gear because it's interesting. I assumed that live touring would be a much bigger part of your earning a living than it is. So we'll talk about how Angel does all that stuff. So let's talk about gear.
Yeah.
Prior to the Charvel thing and post the Silvertone thing, you did the Ibanez for a while, didn't you? Just like the sort of Super Strat thing. What was that, like a RG style guitar, or what?
Yeah,
what did you have?
So how it went was the Silvertone, and then obviously I had the Iceman, and then after that I played Agile. This was in cemetery.org forums for a number of years. Yeah,
that's still a thing, isn't it? Agile, I know.
I believe so.
Yeah,
they have 10-string guitars now.
Yes. Yeah. I see them on the internet. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this was early what, 2005, 2007-ish.
Was that like your first deal, like endorsed deal? Or?
I wasn't endorsed at that point.
Right, so you were just buying them, were you?
I was just buying it because the thing is, I wanted to experiment with specs, but I was always very poor, So it was more a matter of reverse headstock, ebony fretboard, EMGs, mahogany body, Floyd. Okay, $600. Sign me up,
That's right, they're crazy. I don't think they're really widely available outside the US, but they're cheap, aren't they? A little plug for Agile guitars. Check them out. But if you want too many strings and
too many strings,
and a great price, go check them out.
Yeah, for sure. So it was a matter of risk mitigation cost-wise. But then after Agile, I remember doing I performed somewhere, and an Ibanez rep, was just so happened to be there, and he's like, "Hey, would you be interested in endorsing Ibanez?" And initially, I was like, "No, I'm good. I'm happy with my Agile. I'm good." And then some time passed by, and he came to another show, just so happened to be there, and he's like, "Listen, we're doing these the premium." This is right when the premiums were happening. He's like, "I know that you're not interested in endorsing, but would you be down to do a demo for the premium model?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll do that, absolutely." And then what ended up happening was we did a demo of it, and they used a pre-production. If you go to the Ibanez premium video, the first one, you'll hear a pre-production version of A Martian Winter that I did in GarageBand. It's just pre-production, and all the comments were like, "What song is this? What song is this?" Every other comment. So it's like, all right, we know we don't want to endorse it, but would you be down to do an interview sort of second video? And then I did that video, and everyone was really responsive. And then so there's always the artist brain, and then there's the business brain. And they asked me, it's like, "Hey, would you, just Hail Mary, would you be down to endorse us now?" And I was just like, "Yeah, sure, it makes sense. Everyone's really responding to it." So I was with them for 8 years. And then the first guitar, it's funny, the first year I was with them, I didn't even have a guitar. They didn't send me a guitar or anything like that. I was using my Bassist Universe.
Right.
Because I couldn't even afford that. I couldn't afford whatever discount they were giving me. And then I was using that for a while, which is really cool. It was in 1997 because I feel like with Ibanez, in my humble opinion, there were two golden eras of Ibanez production. That was the early 90s and the late 90s, early 2000s. So 91 to 93, those necks were flat, super flat, fast playing. Same thing with 1997 to 1999, maybe early 2000s. Then after that, like, I don't know, like it just wasn't for me. But I stuck around because I don't know, I guess in the back of my head, I thought that they would eventually go back to that at some point. You know, it's like, I'm going to stick it out, you know, so I was with them for 8 years. And the main guitar you'll see me play was this orange Ibanez CT. And a gorgeous guitar, beautiful guitar. And yeah, that's what I played for the majority of my time with Ibanez.
And the transition over to Charvel, was that how did that opportunity come around?
So I had left Ibanez because I was just sort of like, I knew my worth at that point, and they really, I mean, and I don't really ask for anything. I was just so grateful to, like, you know, be given anything. They gave me one RGD, like a stock RGD. And the only thing I just wanted like some small modifications and stuff, and it just kept getting 6 months back up in a year. And I was just like, man, I'm getting signature offers and I'm saying no. Like, what the hell is wrong with me, you know? So, and no disrespect to them, because I think everyone makes great guitars. Schecter, Ibanez, everyone makes great guitars these days, you know? But, so I left Ibanez without having a backup plan. I was just like, I'll figure it out. And I guess it's more a matter of like shark smell the blood in the water sort of thing. And I was getting approached by a couple companies and stuff. And then Jackson Charvel came up, and at that point, you know, it was like, I guess Jackson would make more sense. But I thought about what Petrucci did when he left Ibanez. He went to Ernie Ball. No one cared about Ernie Ball at all until he went to Ernie Ball. And I was thinking, I was like, not that I'm a Petrucci, but again, it's that business aspect. I was just like, it would be quite the curveball because no one would expect this. But I also knew that Away with Words Part 2 was going to happen. They weren't going to expect that either. So I was like, let's go with Charvel. I remember
I think Charvel nailed the whole, because at the time there just wasn't that in-between brand. You were either full out pointy with Jackson or Ibanez, or even Schecter, who at the time was still all pointy stuff, or you were traditional Fender, Gibson, whatever. And I just think the Charvel, I mean, I know Charvel has been around the whole time, and you know, but it's like the way Fender kind of just went, you know, there's the slot that Charvel fits into, and nobody's really doing that at the time. And I think since then, obviously, Ibanez have released the AZ series, which is them kind of going, oh yeah, we need to. So there's lots of choice now in that middle slot. But at the time, if you wanted something that was kind of had one foot in each camp. So, and I mean, looking at that, it doesn't look like you talked about the necks on those old Ibanez's being like, you know, the super thin and super flat. It doesn't look like that's what you've really gone for on there. So what are the ingredients that have gone into this? And the 7-string came first, right? Yeah,
the 7 came first. They didn't really make many 7s. I think there was one Telecaster 7-string. But I was touring Europe during the time, and they built me a prototype really quickly, and it was amazing. And Mike Shannon, I mean, everything he touches is just, you know, amazing. But there's some modifications that I want to make on the body and the shape, because it was more a matter of like, you know, again, like I was born in '85 and doing this for 20 years, so I am a little bit of that old school, but I'm also like a modern, you know, guitar instrumentalist. So it was, like you said, I think it was really well put with one foot in both. And this is literally, obviously, it's like classic old school, but like with a little bit of a modern twist. So thankfully with Charvel, they've been just wonderful about being open-minded about the ideas, because like, you know, with the shredders here on the back being, this is, you know, exclusive to the Nova, with it being scooped out, so you could do the big stretches and not have like a RG like stab you on, because that just hurts, man. Oh my god, it's so brutal. But and then we recessed this quite a bit lower. But with regards to the neck profile, listen, when you first pick up a guitar, I don't care what it is, the neck profile is the most important thing. That is the first impression. You're gonna put your hands on the neck. It's like going on a first date. First impression, right? It's like, oh, this is great. And then you get to know all the other qualities of the person, or in this case, the guitar. So the neck profile was, two things I was a little bit of a pain in the ass about, was the neck profile and the bridge. We tried so many different bridges, man, with the 7-string in particular, because obviously the 7 isn't as wide of a market with the bridges as the 6 is. So, I mean, we tried like hip shot contour bridges, which, oh my God, I just, in my humble opinion, I mean, not for me. Every type of Floyd, you know, we tried. But the Goto 510, it just felt incredible, man. It's like, the design is just brilliant. The engineering, you screw it right in. You don't need to, it's never loose. Like I put it here, stays there. I put it here, stays there. I can adjust the height up and down based on how You know, it's just amazing. Now, of course, you sacrifice a little bit, like maybe tuning stability. You know, as long as the guitar is built well and you're just patient with letting the strings stretch out and it's set up well, you're good to go. You know, but yeah, once we got the bridge, beautiful with the neck profiles. It's more a matter of like, because contrary to your popular belief, I'm a rhythm guitar player first, man. That's what I grew up playing at church. You know, so like I didn't want something like super flat. You know, because I wanted to be able to like play rhythm comfortably. But obviously I didn't want like a baseball bat, like, you know, like early 2000s Schecters, like just like my thigh, there's the neck, you know, like it's just not for me, you know. Not to mention all like the Affliction vibes that I just can't get out of my head as a 38-year-old. It's just like I remember that, but now they're so much better. But I digress. So the neck profile, even between the 7s and the 6s, is pretty different. We try to do a 7-string version, we try to do a 6-string version of the 7-string neck.
Right.
It didn't translate, man. It was kind of tough, but it's sort of like the middle of both worlds. It's soft shoulders, I would say that. Not massive. It's just like it's comfortable to do anything like that.
I mean, you've gone for this angled back headstock design, so you don't need the string trees or anything like that. So is that? I mean, was that a design feature that was right from day one, or is that something that you sort of added after trying different prototypes? Or
2 reasons. Number one, like string trees, I don't know, man. It just like so visually, it's like a 50-year-old with braces. Like it just doesn't look right, man. Just like get Invisalign, figure it out. You know, like we have technology now. But aside from that, this is the only production model that has a tilt back headstock to keep it in, you know, keep equal tension throughout, you know. And that was actually a suggestion from my A&R rep, Mike Tempesta.
Right.
Shout out to my boy Mike. It just looks cleaner, streamlined, and then with the nut, we did a tusk nut because, again, just like friction is
I prefer the, I don't like having string trees on them. Again, I always feel the root of, people think that it's the tremolo that's always the tuning problem on a guitar. It's always this end. It's
you hear that? You hear that, kids?
It's a badly cut nut, the wrong break angle over the nut. I don't know. And again, you find a guitar that's nicely done up here and the trem system is fine. It never goes out of tune.
Why? Because there's unneeded tension. There's other points of tension that you just simply aren't, you don't need them. So I completely agree.
What are the pickups in there as well then? What have you put in there?
DiMarzio.
C3PO Signature Series.
Yeah. This is an Andertons Tone Zone.
Okay, so you're going all Joe Satriani. Yeah. I can't even say his name, but you know what I mean.
Does anyone have a speech therapist?
Too many Vivaldis and Satrianis. It's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But, okay, so DiMarzio
like early
fan.
Petrucci too. Like that's the comment. I think he was doing an Aaron Norton Tones and then he did the Aaron Norton and Steve Special.
Right.
In Petrucci's early days, but I mean, this is the tried and true, you know,
it's a great
sort of
color
versatile
combination. The gold and the green looks good.
Yeah.
It looks good. Yeah. I like it. Okay, look, so that's enough about guitars.
Yeah, screw 'em.
So you clearly you've gone digital over the last few years. Gone digital to, I presume, ease of use of touring and just plugging in and stuff like that. But what was your early, you know, I guess, you know, your first band kind of rigs? What kind of amps were you using for the pre-digital era?
Oh no, I mean, I'm still with the tubes, man. So,
you're still tube?
Yeah, I'm still tube. I'll do it out of convenience, obviously, like here. But yeah, I bleed Mesa. I love Mesa Boogie. I've been with them since 2015. I've been using the JP2C ever since then. 2016 maybe.
Wow, really?
That's my amp, man. Every one of my tones, every one of my records, even the new stuff, like where I did my tone from scratch, all of it is a JP2C. If it's any testament to its versatility, I mean, it's just...
That's a great amp. I haven't even... Because we don't get Boogie over here anymore. No, come on, Boogie, sort the life out, please. Have you tried the new Mark 7?
7? No, I have not yet.
You haven't?
I haven't yet,
I haven't met anyone that's actually tried it yet. I want to know what it's like. Because the JP2 is kind of Mark 4, Mark 5 kind of family, isn't it, I suppose? And I remember when we had those in sort of pre-COVID and like that, it's a monstrous sounding amp. Yeah, I want to try Mark 7. And I want to know what happened to Mark 6. What is there a story there?
I heard it was a legal thing, but I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
so
I think something else was
Mark 5
called...
to Mark 7 and so something else called a Mark 6.
Who knows, man? Listen, like, we can hear all the rumors at the we have no idea.
I know.
I did think that was peculiar.
I'm pleased to know that you know, to choose. So the digital thing for you, I mean, look, I don't even know I'm going to keep all that stuff in the video because people are so bored of hearing me kind of decide. I've got this pre-wired old man anti-digital thing in my head that actually, whenever we do blindfold shootouts, I realise I can't tell the difference, but I still don't like it for some reason. But what is it about going? Is it just purely and simply that? The constraints of touring and having to, will the sound man mic it up properly and have I got enough space to take this and blah, blah, blah. You're using Axe Effects, but what's your, under what circumstances is that the rig of choice?
Yeah, so every tour I've done, I use the JP2C as like 90% of my tone, and then I use 4-cable method. And the only thing that the Axe Effects really provides me is like a gate and the delays and the reverbs. And I think there's one patch that I used to use live, it's been a minute, that had like a little bit of an overdrive in front of it. Aside from that, obviously my rectifier cabs and, they mic it up and I trust them and that's it,
And when you're writing and recording, still real amps or is it a mix?
Everything's real amps. I'm using my cab clone, which I just freaking love. I love the sound of it. I love how it responds.
Where were you 8 years ago when we needed a cab clone
I was cab cloning it back then too. Oh, we have not forgotten. No, I absolutely loved it, man. I mean, because obviously it's a matter of convenience too. I think it's like much like anything else. Listen, everyone makes great guitars. Helix, Axe Effects, Quad Cortex, it's all amazing. It's just a matter of how quick is it to get a good tone. If it sounds like shit, it's a user error. People love to blame, but it's a you issue. It's not a device issue.
I think that's fair to say, even down to some of the things that are a couple of $100.
Oh,
it's like
especially now.
You find a decent sound, you get a decent guitar player, it sounds great.
Beautiful, And to your blindfold test point, I think that's really the testament within itself. But there's a different hierarchy, right? So you have your tube amps, you have your digital modelers and profilers. Now you have plugins, right? So you're steering further away from the tube amps, and to be quite honest, for a number of years, like I just could not get, despite having a signature plugin with the STL tones, like I just could not get behind it, And I tried, and I did stuff for Positive Grid for a couple, I did a bunch of demos for them over the years, and I was like, I get the convenience, but man, the latency, man, the feel, it just feels not right. But man, I guess Neuro DSP just like lit the fire under everyone's ass because it's great now, we are. I think it's generational in the sense that we spent Pete and I and Tay and Oz. We spent a day last week. In fact, 2 days in the end. It took us to just profile a load of amps through a load of different modelers, and then have it set up in a way where we, blindfold, couldn't tell. Listening in here. We had a switcher, but we didn't know what was switching what in, and everything we're hearing through the studio monitors here. One of them was the real amp, the rest were... Anyway, and we agreed by then, it's like, you can't tell. You can't tell.
You just can't tell. But, and there is a but.
There's always a but.
It took us a day to set these digital things up, to sound how it would have taken me 1 minute to make that sound. And I think that's important to me.
For sure.
And secondly as well, and I know with digital, you could always just run it through a 2x12 and run it through but I am less inspired by sound coming out of studio speakers like that than I am sounds coming out of speakers like this. So I always want to gravitate to that. Although I get it. Look, it's like I'm just old. I feel like in my house I should have one of those old telephones that's stuck to the wall with a
Can you
thing
hear me
that,
now?
just because it would make me feel, more grounded.
Yeah. Is it interesting that, when we were younger, like the acceptance of older generations that not get with the times, we never thought we would be that way, and then we become that way. You don't, it's gonna happen to you too.
Technology is exciting when you're young and frightening when you're old.
Because it's a matter of change. It's a matter of change. And I think when something is as,
not that you're old.
Well, I ain't getting any younger. I'm pushing 40, man. But I think it's more a matter of romanticizing something that is artistic and romantic. It's music, it's art, and then the whole conversation, we talk about terrifying technology. Obviously AI is going to revolutionize everything that we're doing, and I've had a number of conversations, very insightful conversations with podcasts about like what that's going to do and the domino effect of that. And is at the end of the day, I think it's with anything, I think a lot of people rush to have an opinion on certain things. Personally, me as a human being, I'd rather be proven wrong about everything I believe in than to continue to believe it, But I think what's going to end up happening for an artist like me, like I could see Spotify releasing an AI sort of situation, and I'm going to get an email one day saying, "Hey, Angel Vivaldi, or would you give permission for Spotify to generate AI music based on you, and we'll split the profits 60-40. Now, an artist like me, you have to understand, like, this is just honest, decisions that artists like me have to make, because first of all, writing guitar instrumental music is extremely difficult. It takes forever. Where bands are releasing an album every 2 years, look at any guitar instrumentalist. It's 3-4 years in between, because it's a lot of responsibility on one person, And if you're a DIY artist like me, like, it just costs a lot of money to do. I'm the bank and I'm the artist. So that's one thing. So, all right, I have to think, all right, well, if 60% of something is better than 60% of nothing, it's there, and I might as well do that so I can fund the big thing that I eventually want to do. So an artist like me, I'm like, fuck it, go for it, make it, And then, I can do the big lavish idea that I eventually want to do. So I think that might be a hypothetical.
I just hope I'm dead before. It's like, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for Arnold Schwarzenegger to appear and hunt down
Well, we don't
John
want you to go
Connor,
that soon.
like,
it's going to happen within the next 5 years. It's going to happen inevitably.
It's just doomsday stuff, isn't it? This
it
whole
is.
AI thing.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I get it.
Feeling terribly old.
No.
Look, I kind of right. So when we were having lunch, and I kind of, I looked at that last video you did, and I looked at the cost that was behind it, and clearly it's a video that's taken days to film with a reasonable crew, and I'm sort of going, it's expensive putting stuff out like that. So what pays the bills? And I guess I just assumed that if you can go and do 100 dates a year of and to a reasonable crowd, that pays the bills for sure. Yeah. But that's not you said that's not really your bag, and not even necessarily something you enjoy terribly, or at least I think your words were, the 1 hour of the gig is great, it's the other 23 hours that suck.
For sure, yeah.
But I think, like many modern musicians now, you just have a myriad of different income streams that in isolation, each one is maybe modest, but added up all together is okay. So, in terms of, there'll be lots of people now, I think, who are going, I want to play guitar, I want to make a living, I'm probably not going to write a number one hit single, so maybe I can't just be that. So what do you do?
Well, I think the concept of the music industry these days is great, because back in the day, like, there were Metallicas and Rolling Stones, right? What happened was they flattened the ceiling, but widen it. So, like, the ocean isn't as deep in terms of, like, making millions, but now the pie is spread out where a lot of us can eat. Right? So it's kind of like when you're an independent musician starting out, you're in this shallow lake of fish, and everyone's screaming, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. What's going to make your voice carry over other people's, right? And I guess the one thing I could tell anyone is just a matter of, do whatever it is that your heart wants to do. Don't follow trends, because trends are for anxious people. And by the time you hit it with that trend's going to be over. It used to be every 10 years, right? You had the 80s, you had the 80s, then you had the hair metal, then you had the grunge, then you had the new metal, then you had, like, the metalcore progressive metal, and, like, now guitar instrumentalists sort of, like, getting his thing, and thank God for Polyphy, honestly, But I think now it's changing every 5 years, and it's going to change quicker, because, like, the tree is branching out like this. So, again, just do whatever it is that you want to do, man. Don't feel like you have to follow a trend. But for me, really, it's just a matter of, like, selling records, and I think that was the main source of income, is like that, and streaming, and whatnot. And whenever I need, like, for instance, like we talk about the big music videos, like, I launched this company called the Zenith Council for, like, artist coaching and helping. It's just more a matter of, like, not everyone's good at everything, and not myself included, but having been in the industry for 20 years, I've learned a lot from other people, and just being honest with my ignorance. It's like, I don't know everything. Teach me. And learning from people that are just, like, a million times better than me at certain things. And I just wish that, like, growing up I had that. That'd be amazing to have a little 1 hour consultation with someone that's doing the thing that I want to do. It's wonderful. So I think it's more about having passive means of income. Obviously, a signature guitar helps, but it's after you have that model for a while, like, it's not going to sustain you forever, So you have to be reinventive with what you do. So mainly the mainstream of income for me is more a matter of just, like, streaming royalties, I would say, is the big portion of it.
I mean, that's not often you hear somebody say something positive about the income they make from Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. But that's, I guess...
Yeah.
I like you, but I think particularly keen again, and this will be, if people are watching and want to find out more, that you're obviously doing traditional teaching if you want it, but you're also doing this coaching, artist kind of coaching role. So just for people that are interested, what would that entail?
Oh my God, everything from keeping your taxes in order and organized so that you don't get hit by the Fed, to, knowing what to wear in a music video to convey what you want to say. Because, they may be brilliant musicians, but they have no idea how to, sell it to the camera,
That was Blue Steel.
Or,
I like
a little something. Or to even just to, be creative with the things that you put out there. Or, just to sort of how to become your own self-sustaining, independent musician. And I think, because I've made a tremendous amount of mistakes. And even now, man, I make mistakes all the time, dude. All the time. Sometimes,
you're here today. Terrible mistake.
Oh, just awful, man. My
Total
condolences to all.
fare.
Is this my camera right here? My condolences to you innocent human beings that have to be subjected to this tomfoolery. But I digress. If you made it this long into the video, Jesus Christ, the amount of gray hairs, But no, I think it's just more a matter of, any sort of thing that they feel like they're weak at, or even networking. Like if they don't know a videographer, I have a network of people that I worked with for years, all over the world that I can sort of, put them in touch with. And yeah, man, it's brilliant.
So bit of teaching, bit of coaching, still writing music, streaming, and
streaming too. That's another one.
Will you tour though? I mean, will you at some point put a band together and tour it, or does that really not appeal?
I love it. Here's the thing. I love the 3 hours. I love the VIPs in the beginning. I love the show, and I love hanging out with everyone until they kick us out. My fans are just wonderful people. I'm so freaking grateful. It's awesome. But it's just being away from home and just the stresses of touring. And then if you're on a tour package, you're a guitar instrumentalist, everyone's got an ego, and then you get ostracized because they don't like you because they're a threat. And it's just come on, bro. It's just and then the other thing too is I try to my approach to anything like that is I always try to kill it with kindness. And then, but the problem is I think there's this sort of misconstruing the kindness for weakness. And then, you get singled out or something like that. And then when you stand up to yourself, then you're the problem, That's always the case. So I'd rather just stay home and stream, and just have a good time doing that. But streaming's been amazing. That's another thing too. Obviously during the pandemic, going on Twitch, and that sort of, I guess, satiated a little bit of my performance desire. Will I tour again? Absolutely, of course, and listen, you'll make great money, but for me, it's not about the money. It's you're investing either one of three things: your time, your effort, or your money, right? To do anything. And I guess with touring, I don't know, man, I love my routine. I love being able to train and go to the gym and eat. And I have a lot of food allergies. It makes it difficult, And then you're sleeping in a bunk. And I'm I don't know. It's a difficult life. And I really commend people for doing that and going out there. I mean, some people have no choice. I'm just grateful that I do have a choice. And I don't take it for granted.
You sound like someone that's nearly 40 now. You know that, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My bones are going, please don't put me in a bunk. Please don't put me in a bunk. Yeah, for sure.
Well, look, all I can say is, despite the food allergies and the fact that you probably haven't been able to go to the gym for the last 3 or 4 days, I massively appreciate the fact that you've decided to come to the UK. And the fact that we get to hang out for a little bit while you're here is amazing. The timing is impeccable because you're going to come to the Steve Vai event tomorrow night,
amazing.
Right? So
yes,
we got you some tickets for that, which is awesome. Which by the time this video comes out will have happened already, so apologies you can't come to that unless you already are. But look, man, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Pleasure's all mine.
And good luck with everything in the future. Please, if you've watched this video and you don't follow Angel and you haven't listened to some of his music, go and do so now. Maybe the teaching and the coaching thing will be of interest to you. But yeah, links will be below. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
We shall see you in another video soon.
Deuces.